Okay, good afternoon. Luto na po yung
Afternoon po.
May something ba ang interns? But wala pa ang interns?
Don't have idea po, Doctor.
Walang ideas. Kayo naman magre-report, di ba? Turn nyo naman. Sige. Ay, permission pala. Wait lang. Sige, you could prepare your slides. Pwede na kayo mag-share screen. LJ. Okay, so for this afternoon, our topic would be immunization. Okay, that is at least for the first 2 years of life, the immunization program of the Philippines. Hindi pa natin pag-uusapan dito ang current debate regarding the vaccination of coronavirus. Okay, so let us look at the program and how it has been affected by the presence of the coronavirus as well. And the changes that has recently been made in our national immunization program. Wala pang intern, sige. Sige, you may start to share your screen. Ba't dalawa lang kayo nasa screen? Tatlo lang tayo, wait lang, natanggal sila lahat. Sino yung isa pang clerk, bukod kay Tin at sa'yo?
Ex-conde po.
Bea. Nawala siya. Kanina nandito siya. Walang nasa ano.
Kita niyo po?
Ha? Wala pa.
Yan.
Doc, dun
Okay.
po sa meeting 2 p.m. po yung nakalagay ata. Kaya po ata tatlo lang tayo.
Ano?
Sa meeting po, Doc, Feb 16, 2 p.m. pa po. Kaya ata po tayo pa lang.
Feb 16. Ano ko lang ba? Post ko na lang ulit yung link. Pero nakapasok na si ano eh. Di ba click nyo lang naman yung link kahit iba yung date?
Same date naman po, Doc, today. Kaya lang 2 p.m. po kasi yung nakalagay. Kaya po,
Ito na.
baka wala pa po sila.
Hindi, kakapost ko din lang naman eh. Ito. Hindi, kanina si Bea nandito na. Natanggal lang siya. Ayan na, nandyan na siya ulit. Claire. Where are the other interns, Claire?
Doc, I think papasok pa lang po. Kasi dun sa una niyo pong link, parang 2 PM po yung nakalagay. Inform ko na lang po sila.
Sige, sige. Sige, I think you can start. Habol na lang sila. So, you may start your sharing of your knowledge on expanded program on immunization.
Bea.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon, Clara and Yes. Good afternoon, co-clerks, and good afternoon, dear interns. So for this afternoon, we are going to talk about or share our knowledge on the expanded program on immunization. Slide 4. So just a quick overview of the global situation. According to the World Health Organization, in the year 2002, I think this is the most updated data from the internet. About 1.4 million deaths in children under 5 years of age suffers from the preventable disease, vaccine preventable diseases, and it comprised about 14% of the global total mortality in children under 5 years of age. Next pa. So for the expanded program on immunization, so the first question that is frequently asked would be, why get vaccinated? So vaccination prevented millions of deaths and disabilities. It aims to build a region free from vaccine preventable diseases. And how to achieve this goal, according to the World Health Organization, by supporting member states to achieve goals of the regional framework for implementation of the Global Vaccine Action Plan. Next po. So, still from the data from the World Health Organization, they come up with the immunization goals for the Western Pacific region. First is the sustaining polio-free status. Second would be the elimination of maternal and neonatal tetanus. Third is the elimination of measles. Fourth, accelerating control of hepatitis B. Fifth is the elimination of rubella. Six is the introduction of new vaccines. Seven, meeting regional vaccination coverage targets. And lastly is the accelerating control of the Japanese encephalitis. Next po ate. So for in the Philippines, EPI or the Expanded Program on Immunization was established in the year 1976. This is to ensure that infants and our children and mothers have access to routinely recommended infant or childhood vaccines. So again, for the goals of expanded program in immunization, this is just to show you the goals from the provided by the World Health Organization versus the goals provided by our own Department of Health. So again, for the goals of API by the World Health Organization were mentioned earlier, and for the DOH, first is to immunize all infants and or children against the most common vaccine preventable diseases. Second would be to sustain the polio-free status of the Philippines. Third is to eliminate measles infection. Fourth is to eliminate maternal and neonatal tetanus. Fifth is to control diphtheria, pertussis, hepatitis B, and German measles. And sixth would be the prevention of extrapulmonary tuberculosis among children. So basically, they have almost the same goals when it in terms of the EPI. Next po, ate. So the expanded program on immunization mandates, according to the Republic Act number 10152, the Mandatory Infants and Children Health Immunization Act of 2011. This was signed by the former President Benigno Aquino III in July 26, year 2010. So the mandatory includes the basic immunization for children under 5, including other types that will be determined by the Secretary of Health. Next po. So lifted this from the page of the Department of Health. This is just to show you yung schedule po of immunization. These vaccines were provided in our or given in our own health centers, and those vaccines that will not be covered by the DOH, the mothers must be encouraged to have it outside the or in the private hospitals po. So next po. So yan, next na lang po ate. So next ate. Sorry, medyo malabo po kasi yung previous ate, sorry. So yan, basically they have the same schedule naman po of immunization for the year 2019 and 2020. So for the childhood immunization, they included the following vaccines to be given or for the infant to be recognized as fully immunized. So it includes the BCG, hepatitis B, the Tdap, the IPV, the rotavirus, the influenza, measles, Japanese encephalitis vaccine, the MMR, the varicella, the hepatitis A, and the HPV. So the Department of Health, they also provided strategies to attain the mentioned goals earlier. So first, they conduct a routine immunization for infants, children, women through the Reaching Every Barangay or the REB strategy. And also, they provided supplemental immunization activity. This is to reach the children who have not been vaccinated or have not developed sufficient immunity after previous vaccinations. So it is conducted either via national or subnational in selected areas. Third strategy provided by the DOH was the strengthening vaccine preventable diseases surveillance. This is critical for the eradication and elimination efforts, especially in identifying 2 cases of measles and indigenous wild poliovirus. So that would be all po for my part. Ate.
Thank you, Bea. Good afternoon again. I am Clerk Garcia and I'm going to present the general principles of vaccination po. Uh, for the first principle, it is a simultaneous administration of multiple vaccines for missed doses. For the sample case 1, it is a 9-month-old boy went for a well baby checkup and is scheduled to get a measles vaccine. Upon reviewing his record, it was noted that he missed his third dose of Hep B vaccine. His mother told you his baby was sick, hence opted to delay the said vaccine at that time. What, as the physician, what is your plan of action? Is it A, give both measles and Hep B virus vaccine, or B, give measles vaccine today and tell them to come back after 4 weeks of Hep B vaccine administration? For this, for this principle, we can the answer is give both measles and Hep B virus vaccine po. According to the principle of simultaneous administration of multiple vaccines for missed doses, they can be safely and effectively given simultaneously. Like for this case, the measles is a live vaccine while the Hep B virus vaccine is an inactivated vaccine. Other examples of vaccines that are routinely administered in one shot are DPT and MMR. And just take note that just use separate syringes and sites for different vaccines. And if same site, give the second dose or second shot 1 to 2 inches away from first injection po. The exceptions would be the Tdap and MCV4. It should be separated by at least 4 weeks if simultaneous administration is not feasible. And yellow fever vaccine, which is alive, and cholera vaccine, which is inactivated, must be separated by at least 3 weeks. The rationale behind is that diminished antibody response if given simultaneously. For the next principle of vaccination is the lapse vaccination. Sample case 2 is a mother of a 3-year-old asked if there's a need to repeat her child's primary series of DPT, OPV, and Hep B virus vaccine. She left her child with her mother-in-law when she worked abroad. Her mother-in-law was not able to bring the child back after the second dose of DPT and OPV and for first dose of Hep B vaccine. What is your plan of action? First, repeat the primary series, or B, resume the schedule using minimal intervals between doses to catch up as quickly as possible. The answer is letter B. For the principle behind lapse vaccine is no need to recount and repeat given doses. A lapse dose does not require the institution of the entire series regardless of the time that has elapsed in between doses. Subsequent immunization should be given at the next visit as if the usual interval has elapsed. In summary, if the vaccination schedule is interrupted, it is not necessary to restart. Instead, the schedule should be resumed using minimal intervals between doses to catch up as quickly as possible. Just a quick review that the primary series are usually given during the first year of life. Those are first immunization doses, while boosters are for other enhancement of vaccines which has been previously given. For the third principle is unknown or uncertain vaccination status. Sample case 3 is a 2-year-old boy was brought to you for a well child visit. His parents claimed that her child's health record was lost during their house was burned down by fire several months ago. The previous doctor of their child has relocated to Australia and they could not get a health record of their child. For the patients with unknown or uncertain vaccination status, the guiding principle would be, when in doubt, immunization should be initiated without delay in a schedule commensurate with the patient's current age. There is no evidence that giving vaccines to already immune recipients are harmful, and there is no vaccine overdose assuming that the child is immunocompetent. For a 2-year-old child, the recommended vaccine at that time during the visit would be the catch-up vaccine of Hep B. Here po sa on top picture yung green. And the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. And the recommended yearly flu vaccine po. How about for the adverse vaccine reactions? For the last principle, it's This is a case of a first-time mom still hesitant to have her child vaccinated in a nearby health center after hearing the side effects post-vaccination from a neighbor. What will you do? Of course, we have to educate the community po. First, for this guiding principle, we have to emphasize that there are permanent contraindication and temporary contraindication for vaccinations. First would be the anaphylactic reaction. These are symptoms presented after administering vaccine having two or more systems involved, such as bronchoconstriction with syncope, bronchoconstriction with the system na respire, and circulatory for syncope. Example would be MMR vaccine given within 24 hours. The patient will experience dizziness, feeling of faintness, generalized redness, flushed skin, and DOB. Like, if patient will have yung feeling of faintness and DOB, it will be counted as two or more systems involved po. And management would be, at that time, do not give subsequent doses. Advise first for egg allergy testing since MMR has an egg component po. And second permanent contraindication for vaccination would be encephalopathy. Common usually in DTaP po, and change in sensorium not due to another identifiable cause occurring within 7 days of pertussis vaccination. And for temporary contraindication, yun po the pregnancy and the immunocompromise. And for temporary vaccine reactions, we have to remind the community that there are temporary reactions here on your right side. The swelling and tenderness of the injection site, we have to advise them to apply cold and warm compress, use clean cloth and water, and not to massage the injection site. And for fever, we have to give paracetamol as needed and to make the child comfortable and to continue breastfeeding. That's all for my report.
So, for the last topic po, the topic was all about how to maintain the vaccine. So, your cold chain is a system of storing vaccines in good condition, and sometimes it is referred to as your vaccine supply chain or the immunization supply chain. The purpose of your cold chain is to maintain the quality of the vaccine or of the product from the time of the manufacturer until the point of administration by ensuring that the vaccine are stored and transported within the WHO recommended temperature ranges. So this figure of your cold chain shows following the chain ensures that the cold chain performance is properly monitored and necessary informations are gathered for vaccine forecasting. So next slide, please, Ate. So in order to maintain the reliable vaccine cold chain at the peripheral level, the following three procedures must be observed. So one, store your vaccines and diluents within the required temperature range at all sites. Pack and transport vaccines to and from the outreach sites according to the recommended procedures. And lastly, is to keep the vaccines and diluents within the recommended cold chain conditions during immunization sessions. Next slide, please, Ate. So for the temperature requirements for vaccines, since vaccines are sensitive biological produce and sensitive to freezing heat and others are sensitive also to light, vaccine potency can be affected when it is exposed to inappropriate temperature. So this figure shows the recommended vaccine storage temperature from your national level to subnational district up to service level. And it should be noted that your diluents should never be frozen. And if diluents are packaged with your vaccine, the product should be stored at +2 to +8 degrees. And in bundled lyophilized liquid combination vaccines, it should never be frozen and should be stored at +2 to 8 degrees. Next slide, please, Ate. So these figure naman po shows your vaccine heat sensitivity. It is categorized into 6. So from your most sensitive to heat, which is group A, example would be your oral poliovirus, to the least sensitive to heat, which is the group F. Next slide, please, Ate. So for the cold chain at health center or peripheral health facility, to protect your vaccine at these sites, it is important to keep your vaccines in appropriate vaccine refrigeration equipment. And we should use temperature monitoring devices to ensure that temperatures remain between +2 to +8 degrees. And we should transport vaccine immunization sessions in a vaccine carrier correctly packed using coolant packs that have been properly prepared. And during immunization sessions, you should use a fit foam pad at the top of the vaccine carrier. And one person must have the overall responsibility for managing your vaccine cold chain. And a second person can also fill in when the primary person is absent. The responsibility of the vaccine coordinators or those or that one person responsible for the over for coordinating or in in maintaining the vaccine potency would include your checking and recording of your vaccine temperature at least twice a day. Usually it is in the morning, and at the end of the session or at the end of the day, it will also include the storing of the vaccine's diluents and water and preventive maintenance at the cold chain equipment. However, despite this, it should also be noted that all the health workers in the facility should know how to monitor the cold chain and what to do if temperatures are out of range. So for the health facility cold chain equipment, so we have one refrigerator. So health facility refrigerators may be powered by your electric, solar energy, or gas, and your health facility refrigerator should be chosen based on the most reliable power supply available and that the combination capacity needed for vaccine and water pack storage. So for a refrigerator, mostly it is set at a thermostat. The thermostat is set at +2 to +8. There should be daily monitoring of temperature, and remember not to the setting should not be changed when the electrical power is lost, and never pack the refrigerator solid. So always leave plenty of space so that there would be the air would to allow the air to circulate freely. So those are your categories of your refrigerators. Next slide, please, Ate. So these are the commonly used refrigerator types. Next slide, please, Ate. So after refrigerators, we also have your cold boxes. Your cold box is an insulated container that can be lined with water packs to keep your vaccines and diluents in the required temperature range during the transport or short-term storage. So your cold boxes usually can be used in cases of if there's no electricity. It can store your vaccines 2 days or more, or if ever the ref is out of order, defrosted. And remember that once it is packed, your cold box should not be opened until the vaccines are needed, because your cold boxes have have a what you call the cold life, which is the maximum length of time that the closed box can maintain the temperature below 10 degrees when lined by your frozen ice packs. Your cold boxes also should be chosen based on the storage capacity and the maximum time the vaccine should be stored. Next slide, please. We also have your vaccine carriers. These are smaller than your cold block boxes and are easier to carry. The vaccine carriers have a cold life with frozen ice packs of between 18 hours and 50 hours at 43 degrees, and to transport vaccines and diluents to outreach sites and store them during health facility immunization sessions. And these are also used to store vaccines temporarily when the health facility refrigerator is out of order or is being defrosted, and can be used to transport monthly vaccine supplies from the district stores to small health facilities. And we also have your water packs. These are leak-proof plastic containers used to line the inside of the cold box or vaccine carrier. They keep the vaccines at the required temperature range inside your cold boxes and vaccine carriers. And we have also your foam pads. These are soft sponge-like materials that fits precisely on top of your water pack inside the vaccine carrier, while still permitting the lid of the vaccine carrier to fully close. And for the temperature monitoring devices, we have your vaccine vial monitors. So your vaccine vial monitors, they are the only temperature monitoring device that routinely accompany your vaccines throughout the entire supply chain. Um, these are chemical indicators attached to your vaccine container, whether it is a vial, ampule, or dropper by the manufacturer. And your VVM ensures that heat damaged vaccines are not administered, and it is also used to decide which vaccines can be safely kept after a cold chain break occurs, thus minimizing unnecessary vaccine wastage. So in your upper right po, as you can see, the VBM showing color changes sequence and interpretation. So normally po, your this is yung indicator po is we use the inner square. Usually it is not purely white, but it is always slightly purple and begins lighter, and sorry, basta it is usually lighter than than the color of your outer circle. And in cases where as the container moves throughout the supply chain, the BBM records it is a cumulative heat exposure through gradual change in color. So if the color of your inner square here po, if the color of your inner square is the same color or darker than the outside circle, and the vaccine, it indicates that the vaccine has been exposed to too much heat and should be discarded na po. So this sa baba naman po are the locations of your VVM and ampules and vials. Next slide, please. We also have your 30-day electronic temperature loggers. These are placed in vaccine load in a vaccine refrigerator. They record your refrigerator temperature at no more than 10-minute interval and show the temperature history for any day in the 30 days. We also have your electronic freeze indicators. These are small digital devices that are placed with freeze-sensitive vaccines during transport or storage. The device have a visual indicator that shows whether the vaccine has been frozen. Next slide po. So for maintaining the correct temperature in cold boxes and vaccine carriers, so we must place the correct number and the type of your properly conditioned ice packs or cool water packs in the cold box or vaccine carrier. And if you are using conditioned ice pack, you should put electronic freezer indicator so that we'll be able to know if the vaccines were frozen. And we should keep the cold box or vaccine carrier in the shade, keep it tightly closed, keep the lid tightly closed, and use a foam pad to hold the open vials at the top of the vaccine carrier during an immunization sessions, and keep the hard carrier lid closed whenever possible. And during the immunization sessions, the vaccines must be kept at a recommended temperature after opening. And for the arranging of vaccines inside the cold chain equipment, we must store the vaccines and diluents in a refrigerator that is reserved for this purpose only. And if there are other heat-sensitive supplies, for example, your drugs, ointments, serum samples, have to be stored in the refrigerator, label them clearly, and keep them completely separate from the vaccines and diluents, and always arrange the vaccines and diluents so that the air can circulate freely. And if the vaccines or diluents are supplied in the original cartons, arrange the boxes so that there is at least 2 centimeter space between stacks, and make sure that the markings are visible when the door or lid is opened. And if the vaccines or diluents are supplied as individual containers, for example, in vials, ampules, or tubes, use plastic tray or plastic box or other arrangement to store the vaccines in orderly fashion. And if diluents are packed with the vaccine, store the complete packaged product in the ref. However, if diluents are supplied separately from the vaccine, store them in the refrigerator if there is adequate space. However, if there is no adequate space, then move the diluents to your ref at least 24 hours before they are needed so that they are cooled, and place the vaccines with VVMs that show the most heat exposed or darker squares in the separate container in the refrigerator and mark them heat exposed vials used first. And this is just an illustration of how we should arrange the vaccine carrier po. Thank you po. These are our references.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Navarro.
Hello,
Sir,
ma'am.
yes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Stop share
What
ko na.
are the changes from the old NIP to your EPI? Anong nadagdag? Di ba yun ang tinanong ni Sir, wag nang isa-isahin yung masyado yung vaccine, yung mga changes lang muna. Ano yung tanong mo, Sir? Sorry. I-next nila sa sasagutin nila. Doc Elvey.
Later, Doc, I'll have to actually going to share to the group regarding the hesitancy, vaccine hesitancy po, later on.
Sige. What are the changes in response to, well, emerging disease, re-emerging disease of our vaccination program? What adjustments have been made?
Doc, one of the changes po, what I've read po, the switching of the trivalent to bivalent po of the for polio vaccine po. Because they found out na the IPV is more efficient po versus the previous OPD po.
IPV, OPV, okay, that's one, polio. Where else? Where else have the changes been initiated? Sa readings nyo. When do you give your MMR?
At 9 months.
9 months. But in response to your measles outbreak some 2 years back, they said it could be given as early as 6 months yung baby. Okay? And that's aside from your Japanese encephalitis. For example, may anak ka. Would you go to your health center for your vaccination of your expanded program of immunization? That's free for all Filipinos.
Yes po.
Bakit naglipa na pa din ang sa private? What's the reason?
Doc, one of the reasons po kasi in the health centers po, not all the vaccines that was provided or recommended to be given in infant and children or not all vaccines are given po in the health centers. Such as yung mga vaccines lang po, as mentioned kanina, like yung mga hepatitis B, yun yung mga usual binibigay natin sa health centers, the pentavalent vaccine, the IPV, the MMR. But other vaccines po, which are not or not available in the health centers, that's why moms are or mothers are advised po to have their children vaccinated po in private hospitals.
Okay. So there are other vaccinations that are not covered by your national immunization program. But At the very least, your OPV, IPV, hepatitis, Tdap, and your MMR, all are covered. The problem is, pagdating mo sa private pedya, anong usual na ino-offer sa pedya? Sino
Dok,
mga
yung
may
wala po sa wala po sa center. Tama po ba? Yung
ang ino-offer sa pedya, anong laman ng 5-in-1 saka 6-in-1? Sometimes kasama yung mga libre. But that's not the fault of the provider because ang mga gumagawa ng vaccine na yan is yung maker. So, syempre, when you do your vaccination, yung mga pwedeng pagsamahin, pinagsasama na. Again, mahirap naman magtusok sa bata kung isa-isa mo itutusok yun. Okay.
one factor din po, Dok, na
Alin?
pinipili po yun ng private, mag-private po if kaya. Yung schedule po. Schedule po.
Kasi pag sa health center, anong araw lang yon?
Opo. Unlike po sa private, you can just message the pediatrician kung anong available time po kayo both, which is more flexible po, especially for working mothers po or
For
family.
working mothers, anong schedule? Okay, one is that. Kahit libre sa center, hindi naman akma sa schedule. Okay, ano pang tingin minsan ng iba? Tingin nila,
Yeah.
dun sa may bayad, mas effective
Opo.
si vaccine where alam naman natin isa lang naman ang pinanggagalingan nun. So, nandun pa din. You look at the trust sa provider, so either sa facility or doon sa doktor. Ikaw, pedya, kasi sa oras. Actually, what ano pa ang nag-contribute sa within the situation of the pandemic? It's very obvious that vaccine utilization dipped a lot, especially with these preventable diseases. How could you counteract that?
As a healthcare provider po, pwede po yung magbahay-bahay, Doc, in case na they are afraid to, bawal po, di ba, yung mga bata pong lumabas. Pwede pong tayo yung pupunta po sa kanila to provide the vaccination po for the children.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Go ahead, Doc Elray.
Yeah. Let's go on with this vaccine hesitancy concept, wherein we acknowledge that there is actually a delay in the acceptance, or at times there would be some refusal of vaccines despite of the availability of these vaccination services, no? And there are a lot of actually studies have been actually conducted for the past 2 years with regards to vaccine hesitancy, and it actually become highlighted because of this pandemic. But we have to identify first what would actually the determinants of this vaccine hesitancy before we can able to address the problem. Okay, I would like to share to everyone that there is actually a working group matrix, or a questionnaire that has been used to regards to address these determinants of vaccine hesitancy, and they were able to categorize the determinants of the vaccine hesitancy into three major groups. Okay, let's discuss it one by one. No, first is the contextual influences. When we say about contextual influences, these are the influences that can be arising due to the historical, sociocultural, environmental. It could also be health system, or the institutional or economics, or even the political factors. So this is the contextual influences. Okay. The second would be the individual or the group influences. These are the influences that can be arising from their own personal perception of the vaccine, or this can be influenced by the social or the peer environment. And lastly, the vaccine or the vaccination specific issues that are directly related to the vaccine or the program itself. Okay, so we have identified three, no? Contextual, individual or environmental, and the vaccine itself, no? So therefore, it's actually clear that the vaccine hesitancy is in fact a problem in our country. And when we actually going to address these determinants, no, this can serve as the key to come up with the policy in the prevention to prevent the vaccine hesitancy and address and also the emergence of the outbreaks, no. However, there are certain evidence about the factors that can be associated with this hesitancy. And in fact, it was actually timely during the time of the recent Denvaxia. And as we all know, it becomes widely debated whether it was actually politicized or it is actually being used for a certain propaganda. And in fact, until now, the investigation is still ongoing. Now, the question for you guys would be the confidence level of the public has been always an issue with regards to the vaccine. If you are able to now ask or question, our people in the community, what could be the probably proper questions or proper things that you have to ask about the vaccination? Kasi you know for a fact that may mga hesitancy na talaga, lalo na kung itatanong natin about COVID vaccine. So what would be the proper questions or proper approach that you're going to ask if you would be in the community? O say, sabi ni Doktora magbahay-bahay, sabi ni Doktora may interviewin sa center and all. What could be the probably questions that you would be willing to ask them? Practical questions. Sige nga, kung magtatanong kayo sa bahay-bahay, tatanungin niyo yung mga magulang, ano yung gusto nyong itanong?
Doc,
Anyone? Yes.
Doc, siguro po, the question should be direct kung ano po ba talaga yung reason bakit po hindi po sila willing or meron pong naghinder kung bakit po ayaw nila pong magpabakuna po.
Okay. Ano pa? So, ano yung mga pag-aalinlangan nila? Ano yung mga hesitations? Okay, ano pa? Before you go to your house-to-house visit, probably you want to also look into the records of the family members, especially the children, no? You may also want to review the coverage of such, yung mga bata, yung coverage nila. And tatanungin ninyo ano yung hesitations, tatanungin ninyo bakit hindi nagpapabakuna. Ano pa yung gusto nyong malaman? Bakit magbabahay-bahay tayo? Bukod dun sa mga hesitations, ano yung gusto nating i-address?
Yung information po, kung saan po
Okay.
nila nakuha po yung information.
Okay, that's a good point. What about the information, Doktora?
To correct po, for example po, kung reliable po ba yung information na nakuha nila, if like sa social media lang po nila nakuha. Unlike po, pag tayo po yung mako-correct po natin in an instant po. Guided with po, yung yun nga po, guided nung ating mga studies po.
Scientific facts, no? Okay, what else? It's a good point. Information is actually one of our major concern. Kasi it's our responsibility to educate the people. Okay, what else, Doktora? Bea?
Doc, may ask po, yung parent mismo po, if they have been vaccinated before. Para
Okay.
in this way po, para makuha din natin yung data kung yung mismong parents ba nung mga kids na gusto nating i-vaccinate, nag-undergo din ba sila ng vaccination before, or baka pwedeng factor din yon kaya hindi sila aware for the vaccination is uh, and konti lang din yung information na alam nila since sila mismo hindi din sila vaccinated.
So personal experience nila, what would be their personal experience regarding vaccination? So if they would say, hindi ko matandaan, bata pa ako niyan, hindi ko naman alam kung napabakunahan ako ni mama. What would be your response on that? Hindi ko alam, ma'am eh. Bata pa ako, tsaka galing kami probinsya, hindi naman namin alam kung may record ako niyan. And that was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. How would I know? Paano natin sasagutin about that? Kung may personal experience sila sa vaccine, what would be your approach then? Sir, ma'am, pwede pong patingin ng kaliwa o kanang balikat mo? Sige po, ma'am, ito po yung kanang balikat ko. Ayan, oh, ano po ba yan? Oh, pag may nagpakita ng balikat nila, anong ibig sabihin nun? Ano sa tingin yung bakuna ang natanggap niya? Kung meron siyang scar dyan.
BCG.
O dapat alam, ha?
BCG po. BCG po.
CG, Doc.
Would it be, ha?
BCG po. BCG po.
Ano yung nagmamark dyan kapag nababakunahan ka? O dapat alam natin yun? O kaya may bakuna kayo, di ba? So tingnan niyo yung mga balikat niyo. Ano yung bakuna niyo natanggap yan? Did you ever ask your mom or dad? Ano to? Bakit may ganito ako sa balikat ko? O anong sagot niyo dyan? Ha?
BCG, Doc.
BCG po.
CG, Doc.
Doc.
BCG po.
Okay. BCG, kailan nabigay yan? Ba't nagkaroon ka ng scar dyan? Sa tingin mo?
At birth, Doc.
Birth. Okay. So ano yung pwede mong sabihin ngayon dun sa magulang? Hindi ko naman alam eh kung may bakuna ako o ano. Kadalasan kasi may mga sagot sila na medyo, pabalang o medyo pa-ignorant. Pero how would you address those concerns kung sabihin nilang wala akong alam sa bakuna? O how would you address those concerns? Ano po bang bakuna? Paano ko po ba yan masusure na talagang ligtas yan? Ang dami ko nang nababasa sa may mga video pa nga yan sa YouTube na panood ko. How would you address those concerns?
Doc, kung meron siyang bakuna, pwede nating tanungin siya mismo kung may nangyari bang kakaiba sa kanya.
Okay. So, pwede mong tanungin yung personal experience niya. Kaya nga, di ba, sabi ko sa inyo, the factors that actually, determinants could be what? Individual or as a group. No? On the individual, adult vaccine yan pinag-uusapan natin. Immunization ng bata. And then you actually want to know about the experience nung magulang. So, you could probably ask yung adult vaccination din. Sir, di po ba sa company mo, meron po kayong free influenza vaccination na every year? Binibigyan kayo ng company kasi required po. Yung ba yun? O nga, nabakunahan nga pala ako every year. So, yung ba yung mga bakunang ibibigay sa mga anak ko? O things like, you want to know the level, no? Kung saan din naintindihan ng mga tao yung bakuna. And you have to explain to them on the personal level kasi mas matatouch yung inner core ng pasyente. Di po ba sir, pansin mo nung nabakunahan ka, hindi ka na madalas nagtatrangkaso? Hindi ka na madalas nag-a-absent sa trabaho mo? Okay, hold on. Okay,
Okay, pwede yun. Pag nabakunahan, may nangyari ba nung ikaw mismo nabakunahan? That's correct. How else? How else could you convince? And there are a lot of material
So,
on YouTube. Di ba, Doc
yes,
LB? Madami sa YouTube na magsasabing
yes.
kung ano-ano.
Oo, may anti-vaxxers pa nga yan, eh, may mga grupo-grupo pa sila. So, nagiging para kasi personal yan, 'no? Kapagka may mga tanong sila, hesitations and all, you have to show them facts or, evidences na, po, may mga sasabihin mo din yung mga expected side effects, expected na puwedeng ganito, ganyan. But with regards to okay, napag-uusapan din ang vaccines. Ang issue ngayon is yung tinatawag nilang efficacy and efficiency. What's the difference between the two? Uy, effective daw yung bakunang ganito, vaccine A to vaccine B, mas effective o mas ganito. Paano mo ma-explain ang efficacy sa efficiency na yan? 'Di ba nalilito kayo diyan? 'Pag tinatanong kayo, "Ano bang mas magandang bakuna?" Kasi ang daming nababasa na mas okay daw 'to. We're talking about kunyari COVID ha, kunyari COVID. O kunyari natanong kayo, "O ano bang best bakuna kapagka ikaw ay babakunahan ng COVID? Bakit mas effective daw ito, effective and efficacy? Ano ba yung difference nung dalawa?" Kung nagbabasa kayo o na-encounter niyo yung mga usual na tanong na ganyan, ano yung puwede nating i-share diyan? Okay, efficacy and efficiency. Paano natin madi-differentiate yang dalawa? Okay, okay. So,
Um,
'pag yes, go ahead.
Doc, from what I remembered po, from what I read po,
Hmm,
yung efficacy is, it is based on it can be explained via yung tinatawag nilang explanatory trial, while yung effectiveness po, yun yung, quote unquote, yung sa real world or yung sa under the clinical trial po.
okay. So may point si doktora. Efficacy is on the parang theoretical framework 'yan, 'no? Kumbaga parang, noong tinitest 'yan, noong nagko-conduct sila ng study, noong naggaganyan. Pero if you're actually going to have it on the real world in that sense, dito yung sinasabi mong effectivity na, okay? So paano natin ma-explain ng maayos 'yun? Eh, anong ibig sabihin nun? Mas effective ba yung ganito vaccine A sa vaccine B? Kasi sabi mo, noong ginagawa yung trial na yan, eh, hindi ba lahat sila nag-test naman? So, paano natin ang approach doon? So, kumbaga, sasabihin na lang siguro natin, lahat sila dumaan sa mga trials. At ang iba doon, nung since kinonduct nila yung study, siyempre nag-iba-iba sila ng responses pagdating doon sa efficacy, no? Kasi puwedeng yung isang vaccine ginamit sa certain group of people kasi eto yung tinarget nila. And in fact, they showed about 50 to 80% na effective yung bakuna nung ginamit dito sa certain group of people. Kasi meron silang tinarget, 'no? So lahat naman sila actually naging effective nung tinest nila doon sa group of people. Ngayon, siyempre 'pag gagamitin na natin ito sa pangkalahatan, do'n natin talaga makikita. So regardless kung 50, 80, 70, 90, 95% 'yan, ibig sabihin nun effective 'yon. Kasi nung kinonduct nila yung study, kesa wala kang nakitang result na maganda. Okay? So therefore, if you're going to be asked, so anong bakuna ang tatanggapin mo kung ikaw ay papipiliin? Ano yung natutunan kong practical answer to that practical question? I would like to share with you, sabi ng speaker, I forgot the name, but it's from UST. I would probably get whichever is available than get infected by COVID. Yun yung sagot niya. So, does it make sense?
Yes, Doc.
Kasi yung hihintayin ko yung, ay, kasi ganito, nabasa ko, mas ganito, mas effective, mas ganyan. Sa kakahintay mo, nagka-COVID ka na. Sa kakahintay mo, mas lumala pa yon. Kasi most of these vaccines, in fact, showed a tremendous significant result when it comes to preventing its severity and even death. Di ba? Yun ang gusto natin eh. Yun ang gusto natin, yung ma-prevent mo din yung severity and even death, yung sa COVID nga. So I would rather have the vaccine right away than to wait for that preferred vaccine just because of what? Naririnig natin, nababasa natin, napupolitika and all. So I think it's actually a practical answer to that practical question. But the question here is, marami pa rin sa mga doktor na they still have two schools of thoughts. They would rather wait for 1 to 2 years daw before they can actually get, or before they would like to be vaccinated. When, we have to respect their opinion, no? Their decision. Kasi, syempre, they have their own reasons. Pero, yun lagi yung tanong, are you willing to be vaccinated ba? And if not, ano yung mga reservations natin? And mind you, if you don't have that confidence to the vaccine, how would you actually expect the public to also gain confidence on that vaccine? Kung tayo mismo, may mga pag-aalinlangan din, di ba? So, going back to the immunization program, no? Marami kasing concerns yan, no? Marami tayong factors na nakikita, even socio-political, no? Kumbaga, mismong sa local government natin, when it comes to procurement, when it comes to the implementation and all, marami tayong nakikita mga factors na nagiging problema. At nakita na nga natin, no, na-identify natin ano yung mga factors na yan. On your level, sa community natin, mas naintindihan naman natin, no, the basic concepts of the vaccination, the immunization and all. Are we actually prepared to come back again and promote the vaccination in our community level? Just yes or no?
Nagbabahay-bahay sila, LJ.
Yes.
Magbabahay. Are we
Yes,
actually
yan.
prepared? Oo.
Yes po. No.
Yes? Okay. Kung kayo ay papupuntahin sa community, magbabahay-bahay. In fact, medyo may nakikita na tayong parang ano ba yon, doktora? Parang linaw ng face-to-face kasi pinupush na talaga no? Ng IATF.
Hindi kasama ang community sa face-to-face.
Pero hindi pa rin kasama ang community.
Hindi tayo kasama. Wala pa.
So wala pa linaw. Pero
would like to acknowledge Dr. San Luis just joined in. Good afternoon,
but
sir.
I mean, doktora, even the secondary level po, magki-face-to-face na daw. May mga bali-balita na within the year, I don't know kung kailan talaga. Pero
kasi sir, kung ang premise mas madumi sa community, mas malabo pa ding mapayagang na kung hospital na controlled setting, papayagan.
Controlled, yes.
Pero ngayon kasi baliktad na. Mas hindi mo ma-assure ang safety ng estudyante pag nasa labas.
Yes.
Kaya malabo yung community, huli siyang maibabalik sa tingin ko.
yun yung problema natin, no? So,
yung community na walang community exposure.
Yes. Sa tingin nyo, anong ginagawa ng health center ngayon when it comes to the vaccination program natin? Kung may idea ba kayo, ano yung...
Doc El Rey, maganda yan. Sige. I'll follow that up. One of these days, magla-live stream ako sa health center.
Para makita natin.
Live stream. Vaccination day tomorrow. Paalam lang ako dun sa staff. If I can try to give you an idea of what's happening. Baka naman sabihin nila, Doc, walang pumupunta kasi social distancing. Or let's see.
Let's
I
see,
will.
no?
Kaya gusto mo
At saka
later,
kung,
daan din ako, sama ko.
ayun. O so, dapat mapanood natin bukas ha, mag-abang tayo. Ano na ang nangyayari sa
The
vaccination
live
status
stream.
ngayon when it comes also to the coverages? Kasi we've been talking all of these things, but we actually don't know what's really going on. At ano yung expectations nyo? Ano expectations ng mga clerks and interns natin? When, say for example, gumising tayo bigla at makakabalik siguro or maybe later on. Pero ano yung mga expectations natin? Ano yung na-expect ninyo pagdating sa immunization program natin? Anyone? Sige, share kayo ng mga expectations ninyo. Or even concerns or worries. Since,
My
kunyari,
expectation po.
yes, Dr. Lali.
My expectation po na yung mga behind po, yung mga catch-up immunizations. I need to prioritize po, especially during the earlier days po nung lockdown or months. Most probably hindi po sila lumabas, and yun nga po, kailangan na catch up, lalo na yung mga bata po na years or then.
So maraming natambakan, no? Maraming backlog, kumbaga. Ano pa? Ano pa yung pwede nating mga expectations and concerns or worries? O nandun tayo sa center, kunyari, o tayong lahat, nag-duty tayo. Bukod dun sa mga catch-up, ano pa yung gusto nyong makita sa center? O pagdating nyo doon, o magre-review kayo ng mga records, ano yung gusto nyong tingnan doon? Yes, kunya may access na kayo sa record, ayan, sige, tingnan nyo na yung mga records natin. Ayan. Ano yung gusto nyong, kasi gusto nyong malaman ay ano? Anong gusto nyong malaman?
Yung compliance po.
Yes. What about compliance din? Siyempre, gusto natin makita yung coverage. Ilang percentage noong ganito, nitong panahon na to versus nung panahon na ganyan. Bukod dun, siyempre nakita natin, siguro bumaba. Ano yung gusto natin? Anong gusto nating malaman?
Common cause of illnesses po during that time po. Or
Okay.
common cause of yung consultation po nila. Probably related po dun sa missed vaccinations po.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point, Dr. Lali. No, baka sa dami ng mga nakamiss ng vaccines na ito, baka nagkaroon tayo ng inclination na baka affected din o yung mga consultations nga is one of them, no? Mga preventable illnesses. Okay, dumami ba ang mga kaso ng ganito dahil hindi sila nabakunahan, or what could be probably the reasons bakit ganito yung consultations and all. But in fact, mas parang bumababa sa tingin nyo yung consultations natin because of the limited mobility ng mga tao. Hindi na masyadong nagpunta ng center. Isa pa yun, no? Hindi na natin mabigage. Kasi siguro konti na lang din ang naging consultations natin sa center. Or it could be probably the opposite. We don't know kasi hindi nga natin alam kung ano yung nangyayari for the past 6 months, no, dun sa center natin. And yun nga. So these are the concerns, these are the areas that we would like also to address. It comes to community health, no? Kasi isa ito sa ating program. Health education, okay, magbabahay-bahay, or like information dissemination, or proper communication. Tapos titinan din natin yung proper documentation nito, proper reporting. Those are the things that you can actually able to do, no? Somehow, in your own ways. Pagka nakita natin na nandun tayo sa center. Okay. So, sa level natin, dito sa community, na-stress naman natin the importance of the vaccination, immunization among our people. Naintindihan naman natin din with regards also to us, no, at as health workers, no, kailangan importante rin natin malaman ano yung kailangan meron na rin tayong mga bakuna on that particular stage or level, no, lalo na because of we have all of this exposure. So your vaccination should be also be addressed, especially if you're actually going to be exposed yourselves. No, kasi kami every year tinitingnan nila talaga yung vaccination record namin, lalo na sa akin as a overseas Filipino worker. They have to see particular, especially particular countries that I've actually been assigned to. In fact, 3 days, 4 days ago, there is again some cases of Ebola in parts of Africa daw. So they still have to confirm it though. But it's actually emerging and the emerging diseases, diba? And this with this pandemic, no, we could see the responses of the government when it comes to this. Ano pa ang concerns natin with the immunization? I think that's for me to from my side, Dr. Luis.
I was asking Lali to nag-present sila, no? I'm sorry I'm late kasi my computer is indisposed as of the moment kaya nasa cellphone ako. And actually several devices are using my connection right now. Nag-present sila Lali. Yes. Yes. Can we go through that and then let's relate it to what we have already talked about or what Dr. Navarro has already discussed with us. Can you show that? Because there are certain points that we really have to focus on. And that's the main concern now with your COVID, di ba? The vaccination program, like for example, what we see now in COVID, it's not as simple as, oh, bili tayong vaccine, although that in itself is already problematic, no? Teka, parang familiar yata yung slide na yun. Can you flash it again? Nasaan na? Nasaan na?
Hanapin ko lang, Doc. Na-close ko po kasi. Sorry.
So it's not just a matter of, no, what time vaccine. By this time, you should be getting already communication from your LGUs regarding your vaccination in your locality. Is that correct? Athena, meron na kayo? Meron na ba kayo in your LGU?
Doc, sabi po nung kapatid ko, meron na daw po. Pero
how were they able to communicate? Paano nila? Kasi one of the things is they have to know what is the eligible population. Eligible population in this case would be limited to 18 years old and above. Diba? Kasi yun lang yung safety profile that was studied by the companies, no, regarding their vaccine. For the EPI, our eligible population would be the under 5 years old. No? So it will differ. Okay? Nasa na. So, one, you have to know how many vaccinees and for you to be able to determine how much vaccine. How are they able to determine it in your locality? Pauline, meron na ba kayo? Are you listed already or have you listed already for vaccination?
Sir, Doc, so far wala po pong general announcement with regards to the administration pa po.
Wala pa? Wala pa up until this time?
Nothing that I've heard po.
So they should be doing Paranaque. They should be doing their master listing. Yesterday we received a memo from our homeowners association. Together with that is a form for us to fill up, no, so that the homeowners can identify who among the households are eligible to be vaccinated, and this list is going to be forwarded to the barangay, and the barangay will then submit this to the LGU City Health Office for consolidation. I was actually in a meeting with our City Health Officer here in Las Piñas just last weekend, itong last Friday, and he oriented us as to what's gonna happen. Kasi we do have a lot of health workers here in the area, and if you are a practicing physician, much like yung what has been said by our CHO last Friday. Nasa nalali? Okay? Sige, you keep it there. If you are affiliated with the hospital, including clerks and interns, that was the decision of the LGU, including clerks and interns, regardless of where you live. If you are listed or if you are an official staff, including clerks and interns, they can be included in the master list for vaccination. That's insofar as Las Piñas is concerned. Kasi it would make sense. Kasi even if you vaccinate all of your residents and you leave somebody unvaccinated who would be frequenting your locality, andun pa rin yung risk. No? You still maintain the risk. And we're not guaranteed so far as of now with regards to herd immunity. Napang-guarantee eh. No? Even the duration of protection has not been guaranteed. Okay? So one, you have to know your eligible population. So these are your number of vaccinees. Okay? Can we go to your slide? Sige, forward mo lang, Lali. Okay. So expanded program of on immunization, basically this is the one that we have for your under 5 children. Sige, go ahead. Okay. So sige, tuloy nyo lang. You've already went through this. Okay, sige, tuloy mo lang, Lali. Until I see something that we need to focus on. Okay, go ahead. Okay, tuloy lang. Okay. O yan yung mga schedule and the vaccines that we are giving in our vaccination program. Okay? O yan, you have it there. Sige, go ahead. Okay, sige lang. Oh, very good ha. Okay, what's a lapse vaccination? What's lapse vaccination? So if you miss out, okay, if you missed out on your vaccination, sige, go ahead. So you're technically showing us what what to do in terms of the vaccination process itself. Sige, go ahead. Sige lang. Sige, go. I just wanted to see what you were able to discuss so that I can discuss with you the things that were not brought up. Okay? Sige. Yeah, there's no vaccine overdose. How long are you supposed what's the gap between doses are you supposed to ensure so to prevent any adverse reactions? How long
4 weeks
between
po ito.
4 weeks, no? 4 weeks. Weird nga kasi for this COVID, 2 weeks daw yung iba, no? So 2 weeks in between doses. Okay, but insofar as the EPI program is concerned, or EPI, standard program na siya, EPI is concerned, you have to allow for 4 weeks interval, no, between vaccinations. And the good thing about that is that we already have combination vaccines, no, multivalent. That's the term, multivalent vaccines, meaning one dose you'll be getting more than one type of vaccination. So this you can receive these vaccinations. This vaccine reactions, this is what we actually call your, anong tawag sa kanya sa program? Let's ask the interns kasi they should have went through this already. Mike, what do you call this? If you go to the hospital, you actually see it there also. Okay, what do you call this vaccine reactions? No, there is a proper term in the program for this, and this is a serious matter. Okay, this is a serious matter. That's why in Green Valley, you will be given 2 weeks observation for you to learn the program or for you to learn vaccination before you are given an opportunity to do the vaccination yourself. And you will be supervised by the midwives. Okay? So what do we call this? Nasaan na si Mike? Nasaan na? Okay, so this is what we call your adverse events following immunization, or your AEFI. And AEFIs are reportable. That's why we have to be careful when we are at the health center. We have to be careful with our vaccination and make sure that we don't contribute to these AEFIs. And what are we saying? Dr. Andres, did you remember one of the cases that was brought to our attention by Ma'am Lay, the nurse? No, nabigyan ng, what vaccine was that? The patient, I
Diba
think, was
ang route?
pregnant. Ano yun? Ano yun? Do you remember?
Dalawa pala yon. Yung isa mali ang route. Yung
Yung
isa
isa mali yung route.
buntis.
Nabigyan yata ng, I don't remember kung anong klaseng vaccine. Varicella yata. Varicella vaccine yata yung naibigay doon sa pregnant. No? And it was the clerk who gave the vaccine. So that's why it's very important for us to be careful. Why? Your name doesn't come up in the DOH report. It's them, yung nag-supervise sa inyo ang mare-report sa DOH. Okay? This is reportable. Okay? So, kaya yung mga fever, their adverse reactions, no? All of these are reportable. We even have cases na nagsugat talaga yung pasyente. What Dr. Andres was saying, nabigyan ng wrong route. So, that means we have to recall the patient and we have to do re-administration of the vaccine. I think for that one, we called up Dr. Ugalde, the infectious disease specialist of the LGU, no, who's also a health officer there. So we had to wait for safe period for them to re-administer the vaccine. Okay, so that's one very important thing. Two things already. What is your eligible population? In so far as the vaccination or the EPI program is concerned, it's redundant EPI program. As far as the expanded program on immunization is concerned, our eligible population will be the under 5, no? The most vulnerable population. And how do you get this eligible population? How do you get this eligible population? And why do we need to find the eligible population? Why do you need to know how many children you have to vaccinate? Bakit kaya? Ba't hindi na lang basta vaccinate tayo every time there's a child, let's go vaccinate. There has to be a target, and that's your eligible population. Why is that so? And we've been hearing this a lot, no? We've been hearing this a lot because of COVID. Because this is what they want to achieve. Sabi nila, we have to achieve this. Otherwise, our vaccination efforts will be futile. Ano yun? What term is that we often hear? April, are you there? Si April kasi nawawala-wala ang signal.
Yes, Doc.
When are you guys coming over to Perpetual? Or ano, by when do you estimate are you coming over? Yung iba ba nandito na? Oh, what do you call that? What do you call that? What are we running after? That's why we need to know how many vaccinees we have to achieve, or vaccinations we have to achieve. Anong tawag doon?
Herd protection po ba, or immunity?
Oh, your herd immunity. Herd immunity, no? Especially for our vulnerable children. Bakit? Why these children? Remember, these children, they play around with friends, right? They are at the mercy of their parents wherever they are brought. Even during the pandemic, you would notice when you go out, you would see parents strolling around with their children, even if they know that they shouldn't be bringing their children out. Especially for COVID. Why? COVID, although they won't get sick, but they may transmit the vaccine, the virus, and they don't get sick. They're asymptomatic. Kaya that's one of the reasons why, since they're not technically productive members of society, so they might as well stay inside. And for these children, our vulnerable population, they're at the mercy of their parents. Even does the child have an option to stay at home if both parents are working, and let's say the mother wants to bring their child with them? Wala, di ba? The tendency of these children, even if you tell them, no, don't go out, they will play when they see their friends. And what if they are not vaccinated, right? So what if they're not vaccinated? That's why we have to be able to achieve the correct number for us to achieve herd immunity. Now, the, the health center calculates this eligible population by a factor, no? By a factor. So what you get is you get your population of your locality and you multiply this by a certain number. And that number will represent, no, statistically, the number of children who are under 5 years old. Okay, ano yung number na yon? That's around 0.275. So you get your population and you get 0.275%. Tama ba ang aking memory? 0.275. And then you get your eligible population. And that's the number of children you have to be able to vaccinate within the year. No? Kasi especially if they're only 1 year old or less than 1 year old, then you'll be able to vaccinate all of these children. Then you're at least guaranteed for the next 5 years kasi completed na yung vaccination nila. Falling short of this, you can't guarantee herd immunity. Okay? And what's the other reason why we need to compute for eligible population? Of course, that's for to determine the needed supplies for vaccination, di ba? Why? Because vaccines expire. And they are very sensitive pharmaceutical products. And that is the main issue we had with COVID-19. Sabihin nila, oh, bakit na lang, di na lang bili, tapos vaccinate na lang tayo ng vaccinate. Why? Because these COVID-19 vaccines have different temperature requirements, or what we call, because we need to maintain cold chain to maintain potency of the vaccine. Okay, di ba? By now, we should all be familiar with that, right? So, going back to the EPI. So, you can't just have, let's say, a regular refrigerator, okay? Because you have to be able to maintain the temperature of our EPI vaccines. And what temperature range is that? Dalawa lang naman usually yung temperature ranges that they require. Ano yung temperature range? Ayan, yung cold chain. Sige, go ahead. Saan ba yun? Sige, tuloy mo nga. Nandiyan ba yung temperature ranges? It should be shown up on the vaccine themselves, no? So it's around 2 to 8 degrees. Tama ba? 2 to 8 degrees. Yan. 2 to 8 degrees and negative 15 to negative 25. So yung 2 to 8 degrees nyo, which part of the refrigerator would this be? Assuming that your refrigerator is pharmaceutical grade, meaning it can maintain the temperature. So 2 to 8 degrees would be the body of your refrigerator. Yung negative 15 to negative 25, more or less that would be the freezer area. So when you go to community, don't mix up your vaccines. Kasi, sige, Doktora Athena, pabalik na po yung vaccine sa ref. You don't know. Right? Because there are vaccines which you should not freeze and there are vaccines which should be kept frozen. Hindi mo alam. Nilagay mo lang kung saan. And then the following day, pag-inspect ng midwife, ay wala, sayang na yung vaccine. Especially if this is what we call a multi-dose vial. Diba? Multi-dose vial, meaning it would have benefited, let's say, around 10 or 15 children. Okay? And these vaccines are not cheap. Right? So it's very important for us to be familiar with the temperature requirements of your vaccine to maintain potency. Insofar as the multi-dose vials are concerned, when they reach expiration, meron silang marker doon sa gilid. I apologize for not being able to show my slides kasi I'm on my phone. No, I'll share it with on Viber na lang for you so you'd be familiar with what or if you want to Google it up, you type multi-dose vial vaccine, and then you will see there a circle and a square, usually around colored purple, which will discolor if the vaccine is already past due. No, past due. Not only that, when you keep your vaccines in a refrigerator, I'll share you I actually created, because I'm attending a PMC seminar, then it's hanggang March pa. And we were required to submit a video on a LMS or any strategy that we use. I actually made one for us, and included there was the vaccine kasi nga we were supposed to talk about it today. I don't have access to my laptop, but I will send to you the video. You can Google it up. You can YouTube it also. How to, this is what we call vaccine stewardship. Okay. So when you keep your vaccines in your refrigerators, I'm sorry, I keep on swinging around. When you keep your vaccines in your refrigerators, you have to allow spaces kasi you have to allow for them for circulation of air. If they're beside each other, very closely packed beside each other, di ba? Air won't be able to circulate, and the temperature in between the vaccines which are closely packed together would differ from the temperature surrounding them. All right, di ba? So that's why you have to space it out. All right. When you go to the health center, you will also see there the vaccine refrigerators would have bottles of water. Para saan yung bottles of water? Why do you think there are bottles of water there? As in bottles of water. Especially, usually they put it on the door of the refrigerator. Mariel, any idea what these water bottles are for?
Puwede po Dok kasi name-maintain niya po yung temperature and para yung spacing po siguro.
Yeah, they're actually meant to maintain the temperature of with inside. Kasi if it gets too cold, then the water there would freeze up, no? So it would basically regulate more or less the temperature. And apart from that, just in case you have short power outages, di ba? The water will heat up differently from the surrounding from the body of the refrigerator itself. So it can actually be a source of it can actually absorb more heat because malamig din yung bottle of water. That's why it has to be labeled not for drinking. Hindi yung pagkukuha ka, magkukuha lang akong vaccine. Kanina pa ako nagbabaccinate dito. Di ba ako pinagpahinga ng midwife? Inom nga akong tubig. That's not the purpose of the water in the vaccine refrigerator, no? So it's to maintain, and that is for the same reason that you're not supposed to be putting anything else inside the vaccine refrigerator. I'm trying to look for a picture when the DOH representative, who happens to be a relative of mine, made a surprise inspection of one of our facilities. Na-report sila sa DOH kasi pag bukas niya meron doong buko pandan salad, no? Merong ano pa ba yung laman nun? Buko pandan, I think meron pa yatang ice cream yung laman yung vaccine ref. No, for the same reason, because this changes the temperature inside the vaccine ref. And the vaccine ref has to have its own thermometer. No, if you have a glass door, pwede na yung thermometer we can see through. Otherwise, you have a thermometer outside with a sensor inside, giving you the temperature inside and outside. And someone has to monitor this temperature every day. Make sure that your refrigerator is not faulty, di ba? Walang nagbabantay, yung pala faulty na or nahugot pala yung refrigerator, which what happened to one facility way back. The story there was that there was the health center and then there was a construction beside it. So syempre, di ba, construction, it needs electricity. So they tapped into the yung power box ng health center with permission, of course. With permission. Okay? But weekend came. Alam nila, wala naman tao dyan sa health center. Patayin na lang natin yung main switch para hindi sayang yung kuryente. What happened? When the health staff came in on Monday, there was a pool of water around the vaccine ref. Na-defrost lahat ng vaccine nila, and that was, I think, what was reported to us, it was worth 3 million pesos of vaccine. 3 million pesos of vaccine. Laking issue yun. That's 3 million pesos. Just imagine that. Okay? Oh, and apart from that, teka lang. Where were we? Yon, yung vaccine. So, the importance of cold storage, okay? Or what we call the cold chain. And that was one of the big issues with COVID-19 because these vaccines, depending on the brand, um, has different temperature requirements, no, or storage requirements. It's a good thing that we were able to catch up with the requirements. And so we're expecting to receive the vaccines anytime now. Yeah, that's why I asked if your LGU has started already doing their master list for you. So for the interns and the clerks, we'll have to check kasi we just found this out last Friday. So we'll have to check if the hospital will be including you in the roster of vaccinees for the hospital. But insofar as the local, the LGU of Las Piñas is concerned, they said that they will include trainees if they have exposure to COVID. But since you're in the hospital, then that would be it. That's reason enough, no, to be included. It's very important for this. Why? Kasi like for me, I have two facilities within Las Piñas, and we were informed you should only sign up with one. Sana malinis nila, maalis nila ako doon sa isang facility para hindi sayang yung vaccine, right? So, when our master listing came here at my residence, I still signed up my name, but I indicated there that I will be receiving my vaccine in the health facility I'm affiliated with. No? Para hindi doble-doble yung or over yung order ng LGU. So you should expect that sometime now. All right? So, si April, sa probinsya niyo meron na ba?
Doc, sa
Meron na ba?
Guimaras po ba? Doc, wala pa po.
Wala pa. So we'll have to make sure kasi if you'll be here and who's in the province? Sa Cavite. Cavite medyo tahimik yata ngayon. Sino pa ba yung taga Cavite sa atin? Si ano ba? Si Claire. Claire, di ba? Anong sabi ng Bacoor? I asked around. Sabi ng cousin ko na nasa munisipyo, wala daw.
Wala daw.
Wala, no?
Wala po. Kasi yung friends ko po from Las Piñas, may nag-iikot na nga daw po namimigay ng form. Pero dito wala po.
Yes, kasi I inquired last week because we have a clinic there, di ba? And my sister is a dentist. So she's a health frontliner. And I asked my sister after our meeting with the Las Piñas kung meron nang sinasabi yung Bacoor. Kasi we're originally from Bacoor. May rest of my family is in Bacoor. Wala pa. So I asked my cousin who has connection in the LGU. Wala din. Ang sabi yata, no, don't take my word for this, but ang sabi yata, pag private, bahala na sila. Bahala na sila? Eh di ba wala namang ibebenta na vaccine? Right? All vaccines will be coming from the government and will be dispensed by the government. That's why in Las Piñas LGU, so just look at this. So this is going beyond your EPI, but those are the basics that we need to remember. Remember your cold chain so you don't keep on opening your vaccine carriers. And there is a box that is used specifically for vaccines. Okay. Make sure to discard your equipment, vials, and also your syringes properly. Okay. And siguro let's look at what Las Piñas is now doing in terms of the COVID vaccine. That's their plan. So the question was, paano yung mga health workers na walang facility? What if you're a doctor in a standalone clinic? You don't have a hospital. Kasi the main focus of the vaccination, COVID vaccination primarily would be health workers, frontline health workers. So this would be the hospital health workers. What about if you are a private physician? Okay, ano kaya ang pwede nilang gawin? So what the LGU said or what our CHO said was that pag ikaw ay private physician po, magpalista po kayo dun sa health center. You will be listed as a physician of the CHO. Parang ililista ka as a health center physician para magkaroon ka ng allocation from government. Then this will include also yung mga laboratories, no? yung si Alain, yung mga
Yes.
laboratory staff, secretaries, no? Since you're not in a facility, in a health facility, they should go to the health center and have themselves registered there para ma-prioritize sa vaccination. Okay? So there was a question, paano yung dentist? Kasi we have a dentist neighbor here. But same thing. Have themselves registered at the LGU para alam na ng LGU and they will be allocated together with the health frontliners. Kasi they are still health frontliners. Yun nga lang, they're not affiliated with the main target of the program. But they still have to extend it to them. Unfortunately nga, sa Bacoor, what my cousin I usually, nga na lang tayo. You know, well, I might be speaking too early. Dr. Andres, walang balita. Dr. Andres is practicing in Bacoor. So, I don't know.
Saan? Wala.
Sa Bacoor, yung vaccination,
Hindi ako dun yung liste. Sa PERP ako nag-sign up.
sa PERP ka nag-sign up. Pero I mean in your health, in your clinic there, how about your staff in your clinic in Bacoor? Paano sila mabavaccinate?
Wala namang nag-iikot eh.
Wala, di ba? O see, I mean, I'm just
Well,
proving.
at the very least, walang nag-iikot.
Yeah. So maybe something I tried messaging our nurse at the health center. Wala rin siyang response pa. I guess wala pa talagang plan with regards to that, no? And what will be the impact? What will be the impact of this if you don't have a plan to cover other health workers other than those in the hospital? Kasi high risk ang hospital. One of my juniors during residency communicated with me because he's practicing in Cavite also. Sabi niya during the pandemic, Doc, meron kaming IM dito, hindi nagmamask. Tapos kahit COVID, tinitignan niya. Ina-admit niya regular, hindi niya i-declare. Ha? Sabi ko, ha? Oo, Doc. Tapos kahit yun hindi as in intubate siya without the PPE and all of that. Bakit daw kailangan pa? No? So that in itself, that kind of practice poses a big health threat. And then we have me. You hear me quite a lot before saying na bakit kailangan magmadali mag-vaccine? Okay? Well, that's in consideration that we didn't know anything about the vaccines yet. It would be most prudent to start the vaccination if you know something about the vaccine. And what Dr. Navarro has said, most of these vaccines doesn't really prevent COVID, you from getting sick from COVID, but most of them are presenting that you don't get severe COVID. And that in itself, but then again, it allows your body to fight off the infection, right? We're after eliminating the virus, but also we are after protecting the people. Okay? And just last note na to, and I just finished watching Rookie Historian, Gu Hyarang. You know that? Kilala niyo ba yung Rookie Historian? K-drama yun. Okay? Rookie Historian. And they had this episode or this story arc when the prince had to investigate an outbreak of smallpox in one of their provinces. Yung prince mismo. And at that time, they already knew about variolation, yung using cowpox to immunize patients against smallpox. Okay? Of course, since old Orient Asian times, we're more on natural rather than Western and all of this vaccination and all of that. Pinagbawal. Tigil yung variolation na yan. Up to the point that the prince, ayun yung sumunod, decided siguro, it would be helpful. So he went against the order of the king. Sabi niya, okay, let's continue with variolation. Eh, ayaw ng mga tao because they're not familiar with the procedure. You know what the prince did? He had himself variolated in front of the public. In public. Sabi ng mga tao, ha ha. And what was the effect? The people had confidence in the procedure and had themselves variolated. And they were able to control the vaccine, the smallpox epidemic or outbreak. Sounds familiar if you were listening to the news last night? Sounds familiar ba? Oh, Athena, why is it familiar?
Doc, nag-decide na po kasi yung si President Duterte na magpa-vaccinate in public po.
Sabi ko nga sa asawa ko, ba, parang Prince Dowon lang ng rookie historian. Gusto ko nga gawa ng meme na papalit ko yung mukha ni Duterte sa mukha ni Cha Eun-woo. Siya yung prince, si Cha Eun-woo. Kilala niya ba si Cha Eun-woo? So, lilipat ko yung mukha niya tapos parang meme na gano'n. Why? Because our main problem right now, as Dr. Navarro was stressing, our main problem is what? Vaccine hesitation. Okay? Vaccine hesitation. And as healthcare workers, no, we might be contributing to it. And therefore, if we understand the process, it would be, well, of course, we have our own, that's what Dr. Navarro stressed out, we have our own reasons not to get vaccinated. Lalo na yung ayoko ng Sinovac, di ba? Okay, but what about other people? Because they're following suit to what they hear from us. Okay, and I believe that's the reason why, because of vaccine hesitation, Duterte, our president, decided that he will get himself vaccinated to gain the confidence of the people in the although maybe he's forced to do it, no, but it's a necessary thing at this point in time, being the leader of the country. Okay, and our job as healthcare workers now is to encourage also our people. Of course, we have to do our own individual research, study, readings on this vaccine, so we would be more confident. And no one, again, no one will be blaming you if you don't want to. My wife keeps on asking me, magpapabakuna ba tayo? Magpapabakuna ba tayo? Okay, because here at the household, it's just me and my wife, and that means, if I don't get myself vaccinated, I might not be able to go to my mother's house anymore because she's a senior citizen. And ang question ngayon sa akin, magpapabakuna ba ako? Di ba? Again, at this point, parang ang hirap mag-decide. Okay? But it's an individual decision. But as healthcare workers, we do have our responsibility to our to our patients, to educate ourselves, so that we can say in confidence that they need the vaccine. Okay, that they need the vaccine. Now, the vaccination, immunization program, malawak to, no? Because it's not all just about your expanded program on immunization. You do have your your regular immunization program, the national immunization program. Okay, but at the health center, the priority mostly is on the expanded program on immunization and vaccinating the vulnerable population. Okay, and we do hope that you have the opportunity to perform vaccination, especially for those who had clerkship virtually since last year. Okay, might be the first time that you'll be setting foot in a health facility, no, and really there's nothing replaces seeing actual patients. Okay, but unfortunately, hindi pa rin tayo pinapaya. Baka March 1, MGCQ, pwede na tayo. Let's see from APMC if they will now allow face-to-face at the health center. And we've already made contingencies for that. Of course, we won't have you go to the health center every day and tambay-tambay sa health center kahit walang pasyente. No? That would be very risky. Okay? That would be very risky. You would only need one COVID-positive patient, no, to send you all into quarantine. Okay? And even if sabi mo, oh, one patient lang kami a day, tapos COVID positive, just like what happened to me. Pero post-quarantine na yung pasyente. Post-quarantine na nung magsabi siya sa akin, Doc, nagka-COVID ako. After 15 minutes of consultation, yun yung huling-huling, yun yung kanyang footnote doon sa consultation. Okay? And sabi ko, taga saan ba kayo? Dito sa Las Piñas. Malapit lang dito sa bahay namin. Sabi ko, doon sa banda doon. Hindi ho namin alam, Doc, kasi kalilipat lang namin. Sa kayo galing? Doon ho, dito din sa Las Piñas. Ba't kayo lumipat? Kasi may COVID po doon sa dati namin tinitirhan. Yun pala, sila yung may COVID naman dito sa amin. Diba? So funny. Tao talaga. Nagka-reason tuloy ako pagbawalan yung nanay kong lumabas. My mother 75, she still goes out. I guess you really can't stop our elderlies from being active, especially if they're used to being active. Okay, so that's it. Any last note? Anything you want to share before we end this session? Okay. So again, when we go to vaccination, familiarize yourselves with the vaccine, the requirements of the vaccine. Okay, we do have door-to-door, but I doubt if they're doing door-to-door as of the moment. No? Kasi you'll be, just like what's gonna happen in this COVID vaccination, there will be vaccination centers. Hindi sila pupunta sa bahay-bahay kasi magkakalat ka nun. Kada bahay na pupuntahan mo. Okay? And when you do door-to-door, you don't have a controlled environment. So we would want to do this in a controlled environment. So this will be done mostly in health facilities like hospitals. Perpetual has agreed already to be a vaccination center. So, if you don't get into the vaccination list of your locality, let us know so that the doctor, we can hopefully maihabol namin kayo sa wala pa naman yung vaccine there. Hopefully, we're able to include you in the vaccination list. I'll try to talk to Dr. Crisostomo to confirm that, both for clerks and interns. Okay. Anything else? Any last concerns? I hope we realized something today. It's not that easy, no, Dr. Navarro. And we're only talking about kids, ha? Wala pa yung adult vaccination dyan. Okay, adult vaccination. Something which is not really talked about. Kasi parang matanda na ako, kailangan ko ba ng bakuna? No? But we do have vaccination, adult vaccination program. Okay? Okay. So anything else, Dr. Navarro, Dr. Andres? Thank you very much. That's my sharing for this afternoon.
Nothing more.
None from my side po, sir.
Thursday.
So Thursday, since we're in vaccines and vaccine stewardship, we would like to have an exercise on anong tawag ko? Drug stewardship. Okay, so I'll be sending you a case. Meron na kami actually cases before, and let's have an exercise as if you're in front of a patient, deciding. Kasi ganito yung scenario. Patient consults with you, so that you can prepare. Prepare yourself, psych up yourselves. You have a scenario wherein you have a patient, okay, and you think you need to do several tests for the request several tests from the patient, and you want to prescribe several drugs to the patient, and then the patient tells you, Doc, wala po akong pera. What are we supposed to do? Okay ba yun? Ganun yung main scenario natin. Ha? Wala po akong
din ako ng OB prenatal. Malaman nila kung magkano ang OB labs.
Yan.
At magkano ang vitamins na 9 months.
That's the main challenge that we have at the health center. Kaya nga UHC is a welcome change. PhilHealth, your primary benefit package, if implemented properly, would have been very helpful. But short of that, what are you gonna do if the patient tells you, Doc, hindi ho enough yung pera ko? Okay? Psych up yourselves. Prepare nyo yung sarili nyo. Walang iiyak, ha? Walang iiyak. Sabi na, awa ako sa pasyente, Dok. Okay? Kung ganun kayo, huwag kayong magpi-PGH. Nako, my experience when I was in PGH, sumusweldo ko pero wala akong naiuwi kasi lahat ng sweldo ko napunta sa pasyente. Sa totoo lang.
Ako pang
No?
blood transfusion tsaka mech vent.
Nako, yun pa. Kung ayaw nyong mag-ambubag ng pasyente for 8 hours, huwag kayong pupunta ng PGH kahit mag-residency. No? Kasi sa PGH, ay back during our time, uso yung tinatawag na, okay, hook to ventilator. Dok, walang ventilator, hook to intern. We had one experience there, nagbabag yung relative. Nag-rounds yung intern. Nanay, kawawa naman kayo, pagod na kayo. Ako muna kukuha niyan. O sige anak, kakain lang ako ha. Umuwi si mother. Natulog sa bahay. Hindi na bumalik. Si intern kinabukasan nag-aambubag pa rin. So we had to cover for everything that our co-intern was supposed to be doing kasi naipit siya dun sa pasyente. Hook to intern tawag namin. No? Hook to intern. That's a experience. You won't experience in a private facility. Pero kung gano'n ang gusto ninyo, residency kayo sa government para masaya. Okay, some of you, meron bang galing government dito? Wala no, puro private medical school ang pinanggalingan natin. Government medical school. Meron yung mga public university.
Nag-Jose Reyes po kami, Dok.
Ano na?
Nag-Jose Reyes po.
Jose Reyes.
Yes,
Jose
Dok.
Reyes. Clerkship?
Apo.
Wala namang hook to clerk?
Wala naman, Dok. Pero Dok, sa UST minsan po, yung meron kaming clinical division dun. Cash basis po dun, Dok. So, pag wala rin pong pera yung pasyente, parang kami rin po yung gumagawa lahat.
Okay. So, hindi naman tayo abutin sa ganun sa community. Pero the main challenge there is, what are we going to do if the patient is not able to, doesn't have the means to comply with what we know is the best way of managing them. Okay? All right. So we'll have that on Thursday. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I apologize for being late. And we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you, Dr. Navarro. Malamig ba dyan? Malamig ba dyan sa inyo?
Positive 5 lang, sir. 5.
Positive 5? Wow, ang lamig.
Yes.
Buti pa dyan. Okay.
Umiinit na dito. Ang init na.
Nagreklamo nga yung kaibigan ko, sakit na daw ng tuhod niya. Sabi ko, bakit? -1 dito sa amin. Sa US naman siya. -1. Sabi ko, birthday nung Sunday, sabi ko, hindi yan temperature. Edad yan. Edad. Okay. Sige, we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you po, Doc.